Welcome on board, chosen one. Funny how they all act shocked now. Funny how the same people who drained you dry are suddenly pretending they never held the knife. Look who's whispering your name like a warning. Look who's calling you selfish now that you finally stopped letting them treat you like a free pass to avoid their own mess. They swear you turned cold. They swear you stopped caring. They swear you changed. They have no idea the universe is standing behind you smirking because none of this was an accident. Let's start with the truth they're terrified to admit. They needed you broken. They needed you exhausted. They needed you running in circles, trying to fix problems you didn't create. Your pain made them feel safe. Your struggle made them look better. Your silence made them comfortable. And the second you stopped playing their background character, that's when the panic showed up. That's when the whispers started. That's when they built this whole little story where you're the villain, just so they don't have to face what they did. If you're feeling this already, hit the like button and subscribe. That's how you pay this message back and strengthen the mission we're building here. Now listen carefully, chosen one, because here's the part they'll never say out loud. The moment you walked away, the whole atmosphere around you changed. The silence hit different. The air felt heavier. That calm after the storm wasn't peace. It was power settling into a new place. Yours. People felt it, even the ones who never said a word, the ones who watched from the sidelines, the ones who pretended they didn't see you hurting, when you cut ties, when you stopped begging, when you stopped trying to rescue people who never lifted a finger for you. Something clicked in them. They felt the shift. They felt the wake-up call, and it scared them because it forced them to look at their own lives and realize they've been suffering in the same way you were. You didn't know it then, but your exit became their permission slip. Your selfish moment became someone else's lifeline. They watched you survive the guilt. They watched you walk out of the fire without asking anyone to clap. They watched you stop apologizing for choosing yourself. And suddenly they realized, maybe, just maybe, they could do it too. See, the enemy wants to pretend your absence didn't matter. They want to act like you were replaceable. They want to tell everybody you were never that important. Yet look how quick they search for you now. Look how fast they check if you're doing better without them. Look how quiet they get when someone brings you up. That silence, that's not peace. That's regret trying really hard to behave. But let's go deeper than that. Let's hit them where it hurts. Remember those nights you stayed up replaying everything they accused you of. You're too much. You care too little. You think you're better. You have changed. They threw these lines at you because they were losing control. Because your growth exposed their stagnation. Because your clarity exposed their chaos. Because your strength exposed the weakness they tried so hard to hide. Here's the part they'll never confess. You outgrew the whole scene. You walked out of the same cycle they're still stuck in. You stopped saving people who were committed to staying broken. And yeah, it hurt. It always hurts. But you didn't walk away to be a hero. You didn't walk away to inspire anyone. You walked away because you were tired of watching your life rot in rooms that never deserved you. And somehow, without even trying, that choice saved everything. Let me tell you something personal, something you've lived, but maybe never named. You've always been the one who held it together. Even when your world was falling apart, you were the glue for everybody else. You carried people through storms that would have destroyed them. You listened to their pain while yours went ignored. You comforted them when nobody comforted you. You kept trying to save everyone because you thought that's what made you valuable. Then came that one moment, your breaking point, that changed everything. That day when you didn't even announce it, you didn't scream, you didn't fight, you just let go. Quiet, stunning, ruthless. You finally said, no more. They thought that was your downfall. They thought you were collapsing. They thought you were quitting. But the universe watched you walk away and said, "Finally, they're ready." And from that point on, something shocking happened. People started following paths you didn't know you created. They started healing because you healed. They started leaving toxic circles because you left. They started valuing themselves because you did. You weren't trying to save anyone. You weren't trying to become an example. You weren't trying to be a legend. But your courage became a map. Your silence became a message. Your absence became the loudest truth they ever heard. And your so-called selfish move, it ended up saving everything. Brace yourself, chosen one. The story is just getting started. And listen up, chosen one. You, the quiet storm who wasn't trying to save anybody, but somehow ended up flipping the whole script anyway. Before we go any deeper, drop your mark in the comments. Hit the comments me with a 777 if you can feel the shift inside you, the one that started the moment you stopped rescuing ungrateful people and accidentally saved the entire atmosphere around you. This isn't just support. This is you claiming your seat at the table you were never supposed to reach. Press that like button, lock in with a subscribe, and treat it like a signal flare to the universe that you're done shrinking. And as we move forward, stay sharp. Because if you're truly one of the rare ones, you won't just watch this. You'll feel the pull to stay until the final word hits. All right, chosen one. Transition your mind, steady your breathing. Let's step into the next chapter and break this thing open piece by piece. The exit that rewrote the entire story. Funny how the same people who drained you dry are now offended you finally stopped leaking. They never expected you to move. That's the part burning them alive right now. They were so sure they had you pinned, trapped, predictable, loyal to the suffering they handed you. They thought you'd stay in the chaos because you were too emotional to leave, too attached, too forgiving, too soft. They read you like a cheap book, never realizing the plot twist was already loading behind your eyes. They were busy underestimating you while you were busy outgrowing them. And here's the truth. Their ego can't swallow. They didn't lose you because you were selfish. They lost you because you realized they were wasting your life. You noticed the ship was sinking, the people in charge were clueless, and the whole crew was more invested in pretending everything was fine than actually fixing anything. So you just left. Quiet, clean. No performance, no dramatic exit, just a decision fueled by survival, not spectacle. And that silence, that's what crushed them, because silence exposes everything they tried to hide. You didn't slam doors, you didn't scream, you didn't beg anyone to understand you. You didn't even point fingers. You just walked out, and in that moment, they saw a version of you they never believed existed. The one who would choose themselves over their nonsense. Now, they're sitting in the ruins, wondering how someone they treated like a disposable backup character suddenly became the one person with the guts to escape. They're angry because your exit forced them to face the truth they've avoided for years. Staying was a choice, not a prison sentence. They could have left too, they just didn't. You weren't trying to be a hero. You weren't trying to teach lessons. You weren't trying to save anyone. You were trying to breathe. But the universe loves irony, and your freedom became the trigger that shook their entire storyline. And now they tell everyone you changed. No, you didn't change. You finally stopped pretending. They say you were cold. No, you just stopped burning for people who refused to warm their own lives. They say you were heartless. No, your heart simply stopped being their emotional vending machine. They call you selfish because they're allergic to accountability. The moment you stopped prioritizing their comfort, they started acting like you committed a crime. It's wild how fast people rewrite history when the character they depended on stops performing. Here's the part that slices them the deepest. You didn't give them a villain to fight. You gave them a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. Now they're replaying everything you said, every warning, every moment you tried to communicate, every time you swallowed pain just to keep peace. They ignored it then, but it's haunting them now. And that's why they're obsessed with your silence. That's why they keep tabs on you, even though they pretend they don't. That's why your name makes the room go quiet. They're terrified you found a life where they no longer matter. And you did, because once you walked away, everything shifted. Your energy changed, your choices sharpened, your world expanded, your standards rose, your peace returned, and the universe responded like, finally, they chose themselves. Let's answer the questions chewing at your mind right now, because I know you feel that tension. Why are they acting like I betrayed them? Because your independence exposes their dependence. You were their stability. Without you, their chaos has no shield. Why do they suddenly care now that I'm gone? Because they thought you'd never leave. They thought you were too scared to stand alone. Now they realize you were the strongest one in the whole room. Why does it feel like everything around me is shifting after I walked away? Because it is. When you cut yourself free from people who drain you, the universe reroutes your entire path. What you feel is alignment, not confusion. Why does my silence bother them more than my words ever did? Because silence means you no longer need them, and nothing bruises a fragile ego more than losing someone who gave them meaning. Here's the story nobody tells. It wasn't your softness that scared them, it was your potential. They always knew you were powerful. That's why they worked so hard to distract you, drain you, and delay you, because once you realized what you were capable of, you would outgrow them without a second thought. Which is exactly what happened. You weren't trying to save anyone. You weren't trying to destroy anyone either. You just stepped into a life where your peace finally mattered, and in doing so, you accidentally saved everything. You saved your sanity, you saved your time, you saved your future, and surprisingly, you saved people watching you from afar who needed permission to walk away too. Your exit wasn't selfish, it was necessary. Your silence wasn't cold, it was sacred. Your choice wasn't cruel, it was the first honest thing you've done in years. And now they're dealing with the aftermath, the empty chair where you used to sit, the tasks you used to handle, the support you used to give, the stability you used to bring, the peace you used to carry. They're realizing your absence weighs more than your presence ever did, because here's the gut punch they can't escape. You were the foundation holding everything together. You were the glue, the voice of reason, the quiet strength nobody noticed until it disappeared. Losing you revealed everything that was wrong with them. And you know what the universe does when someone finally walks away from a place that never deserved them. It opens a door that scares the enemy, because the story no longer revolves around their chaos. It revolves around your rise. So stand tall, chosen one. Your exit wasn't a mistake. Your silence wasn't weakness. Your self-respect wasn't selfishness. It was the beginning of a shift they never saw coming. And now, they're watching the one they tried to break become the one they can never reach again. The villain they created became the hero of a world they never built. And somehow, without even trying, you saved everything. The price they never paid but blamed you for. Funny how they expected you to hold the whole world together, but called you dramatic the moment you couldn't hold yourself. Let's peel back the mask on this thing, chosen one. Let's talk about the part they love to skip. The part they conveniently erase when they're out there calling you the villain, the problem, the reason everything fell apart. They forget the years you carried them. They forget the weight you lifted. They forget the nights you stayed awake worrying about people who couldn't even spell loyalty without Googling it. They forget the version of you that bled for them while they sat there acting like your pain was a natural resource that would never run out. You gave them everything, not in a poetic way, literally everything. Your time, your energy, your validation, your patience, your stability, your peace. You sacrificed pieces of yourself like they were replaceable. You were the one answering calls at 3 a.m., even when you had to be up at 6. You were the friend who showed up even when you were breaking inside. You were the partner who forgave things nobody should forgive. You were the child trying to earn love from people who should have given it without hesitation. And what did they do with all of that? They normalized it. They built their comfort on top of your suffering. They treated your sacrifice like a monthly subscription they never had to pay for. Your kindness became the currency they lived on, and they still had the audacity to call you selfish. Imagine this. You're a lighthouse during a storm, guiding ships that don't even bother to thank you. They dock safely, go home, and brag about their bravery. Meanwhile, you stand alone in the cold wind, waiting for someone to look back. But they never do. They only return when their next storm hits. Imagine this. You're the power grid of their life. Every time they lose direction, they plug into you. But the moment you flicker, the moment you need someone to recharge you, they act shocked that you're not a machine. Imagine this. You're a bridge holding everyone up while cracking under the weight. Cars pass, people cross, everyone gets where they need to go. But when you snap under years of pressure, suddenly the world is pointing fingers saying, "Why weren't you stronger?" And the sickest part, they never saw you as a person, they saw you as a function. You weren't the friend, you were the therapist, you weren't the partner, you were the fixer. You weren't the child, you were the emotional punching bag. You weren't the loved one, you were the safety net. Here's another quote they'll choke on. They called you strong so they wouldn't have to feel guilty for never being there when you were weak. They loved the idea of you being invincible because it meant they never had to check on you. They never had to ask if you were okay. They never had to face the truth that you were human, and when you finally showed a crack, they acted like it was a betrayal. Let's answer the questions pounding inside you right now. Why do they act like I owe them an explanation for breaking down? Because they built their stability on your strength. When you crumble, their whole world shakes. They blame you so they don't have to blame themselves. Why did they stop appreciating me? Because consistency breeds entitlement. The more you gave, the less they valued it. They confused your loyalty with obligation. Why did they abandon me the moment I needed them? Because they never intended to reciprocate. They only knew how to take, not give. Why did they turn on me when I set boundaries? Because your boundaries highlighted their exploitation. They weren't angry you changed. They were angry you stopped allowing access to the parts of you they abused. Imagine this. You're a well that never ran dry, so they stopped appreciating the water. But the moment you closed the lid to refill yourself, they accused you of being selfish. They weren't upset about the closure. They were upset about the loss of convenience. And let's get brutally honest. You didn't betray them. You didn't abandon them. You didn't become the villain they paint you as. You woke up. There's a massive difference between betrayal and awakening. Betrayal is breaking a promise. Awakening is realizing the promise was killing you. You finally saw the pattern. You finally understood that no matter how much you gave, they would always want more. You finally realized you were being held to superhuman expectations by people who wouldn't survive a single day in your shoes. Here's a gut punch truth. Being the strong one is the fastest way to be ignored until you burn out. You weren't strong because you wanted to be. You were strong because nobody else stepped up. You filled roles you never asked for. You solved problems you didn't create. You held hands that were shaking while nobody noticed yours were trembling too. And when you finally fell apart, they acted shocked. They acted confused. They acted betrayed. But what they're really mad about is this: you stopped letting them use you as a lifeboat while they watched you drown. They expected you to save them, but they never intended to save you. The moment you stopped performing miracles, the moment you said, "I can't keep doing this," the moment you treated yourself like a human being for once, that's when they flipped. Because they didn't love you. They loved what you did for them. And here's the final slap of truth. Your strength was never the problem. Their dependence was. Your generosity wasn't the issue. Their entitlement was. Your love didn't destroy you. Their expectation that you'd give endlessly did. So hear this loud and clear, chosen one. You didn't break the system. You just stopped letting it break you. You didn't betray anyone. You simply stopped sacrificing yourself for people who couldn't even spell reciprocate. And now that you've woken up, now that you've stepped back, now that you've stopped being their power source, they don't know what to do without you. The strong one finally sat down. The dependable one finally cracked the code. The silent hero finally put the cape away. And the world that fed off your strength is falling apart because they never learned how to stand on their own. Let them. Let the chaos they created belong to them. Let the weight you used to carry return to the hands that dropped it on you. Because the moment you stopped playing their role, the entire story rebooted. You weren't trying to save anyone, but by saving yourself, you saved everything. The day your body said no more. Funny how they called you heartless, but never noticed they were feeding on a heart that was already running on fumes. Let's get real, chosen one. You never woke up and said, "Let me be selfish today." That was never your style. What actually happened was way more brutal. You ran out of yourself. Completely. The tank was empty. The engine was coughing. Your spirit was throwing warning signs like a broken dashboard, and nobody noticed because they were too busy draining you to ever check the meter. Imagine this, a phone that everyone keeps using but nobody ever charges. Eventually it dies, right? Not because it wanted to, but because that's what happens when you take and never refill. That was you. They kept tapping into your energy like you were an endless power source, then acted confused when you finally shut off. And when you hit that breaking point, you made the most terrifying and strongest decision of your entire story. You chose to disappoint them rather than destroy yourself. Choosing yourself wasn't disrespect, it was survival. You chose your sanity over their comfort, your life over their ego, your future over their expectations. That wasn't selfish. That was the first real self-love you'd practiced in years. You walked away. You stopped explaining things to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped trying to carry emotional baggage that wasn't yours. You stopped being the firewood for people who never shared their warmth. And in that clean, quiet exit, you reclaimed something they never expected you to take back: your power. Now here's the part that rattled their world. Chaos erupted because systems built on your silence cannot handle your truth. Relationships built on your weakness cannot handle your strength. families built on using you, cannot handle losing you. And you're sitting there wondering, was it really this fragile without me? Yes, because you weren't just part of their world. You were the glue holding the whole structure together. Your exit didn't ruin anything. It simply exposed what was already broken. And the moment you escaped, everything they built on your back finally collapsed, just like it should have. Their panic told you everything they hid. They weren't scared of losing you. They were scared of finally meeting the version of themselves that appeared when you were gone. The moment you walked out, the panic hit them like a slap they never saw coming. They weren't expecting you to move. They weren't expecting the quiet exit. They weren't expecting the person they drained for years to finally run out of supply. And when you disappeared from their schedule, their messages, their emotional toolbox, the whole system shook because suddenly the person they thought would always be there wasn't. Imagine this: a house built on stolen electricity. It looks fine, everything works, until the real owner pulls the plug. That blackout, that was your absence, and the panic that followed wasn't love, wasn't concern, wasn't regret. It was exposure. They finally had to face their own emptiness without you patching the holes. Instead of asking, why did they leave? They asked, how dare they? Because accountability is heavier than blaming you. They flipped the script fast. You went from reliable to cold, from caring to heartless, from loyal to traitor. They weren't describing you. They were describing the version of you they needed to believe in so they wouldn't have to confront the truth. They took you for granted, and they lost. And here's the quote they'll never admit applies to them. Your healing felt like abandonment to people who only loved you when you were breaking. They turned your survival into their drama. They weaponized your absence like you owed them your presence forever. They mourned the convenience you used to provide, not the person you actually were. But while they were busy performing their little victim monologue, something legendary was happening behind the scenes. You were healing, quietly, privately. No audience, no applause, no noise. Just you, finally rebuilding the life they kept interrupting. Their panic wasn't love. It was proof. Proof that you mattered more than they ever admitted. Proof that you were the backbone of situations they blamed you for. Proof that your absence revealed the truth they kept buried. And proof that walking away was the smartest move you ever made. The quiet that kept them awake at night. They weren't haunted by what you said. They were haunted by the fact that you finally said nothing. The silence you stepped into wasn't empty, it was powerful. It was the first real breath you'd taken in years, the kind that fills your lungs instead of stealing them. You didn't announce your healing. You didn't post your progress like a highlight reel. You didn't rant, explain, justify, or defend. You simply existed in your new reality, learning how it feels to live without carrying a 1,000-pound apology on your back. And that silence, it drove them wild. Imagine this: someone who's been pulling your strings suddenly realizes the puppet has cut the wires. That's what your silence felt like to them. They needed your reaction to feel relevant. They needed your anger to feel powerful. They needed your explanation to feel innocent. They needed your guilt to feel justified. Your silence stripped all that away. They kept waiting. Waiting for the text, waiting for the apology, waiting for the breakdown, waiting for you to fold back into the version of yourself they could manipulate. But you never came back. You didn't flinch. You didn't defend. You didn't slip up and over-explain like you used to. And here's the quote that sums it up. Your silence wasn't avoidance. It was closure wrapped in power. With every boundary you protected, with every guilt trip you ignored, with every message you didn't respond to, you grew. Your back straightened, your mind sharpened, your energy returned without asking permission. You became the version of yourself they prayed would never exist, the version that doesn't need them, doesn't chase them, doesn't care for their validation, and doesn't shrink to keep their ego intact. The person who left was tired. The person who rebuilt is untouchable. Not rebuilt for their comfort, rebuilt for your comeback. The freedom that exposed their prison. Your escape didn't just set you free, it showed everyone else the door they were too scared to touch. Your transformation wasn't aesthetic, it wasn't a trend. It wasn't some cute healing journey they could mock from the sidelines. It was a full-on rebellion against the version of you they tried to trap. Every step forward you took, every boundary you held, every piece of your peace you reclaimed. It sent a message louder than anything you could have said out loud. Freedom is possible. And that message rattled them. Because people who benefit from your silence can't stand the sound of your liberation. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was strength they couldn't match. Choosing yourself wasn't selfishness. It was survival they never practiced. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And the fact that you didn't come crawling back, didn't crack under pressure, didn't regress into the old version of yourself they could control, that was the plot twist none of them prepared for. Imagine this. A bird that always kept its wings folded suddenly flies in front of others who never believed they could lift off. That's what your exit looked like. You weren't trying to prove anything, but the proof showed up anyway. Because here's the truth they'll never speak out loud. Your so-called selfish move became someone else's survival guide. You weren't the only one suffocating. You weren't the only one drowning in expectations, guilt, manipulation, and fake roles you never agreed to play. There were others watching from a distance, whispering inside themselves, "Is it possible to leave? Is it possible to survive the judgment? Is it possible to choose myself without losing everything?" They were trapped in the same emotional cages. Chains made of obligation, fear disguised as loyalty, guilt dressed as love. And then they saw you break yours. Even when they didn't clap for you, they noticed. Even when they didn't comment, they listened. Even when they pretended your absence didn't matter, they were quietly studying the blueprint you didn't know you were creating. You left and you lived. You healed and you didn't hide. You rebuilt and you didn't apologize. And that one undeniable fact shook them. You didn't come back weaker, you came back free. That's the part that messes with their heads. They expected you to crumble. They expected you to regret it. They expected you to need them again. Instead, your eyes got clearer. Your energy got cleaner. Your boundaries got stronger. Your presence became heavier, ironically, only after you removed yourself from their weight. And the people secretly watching you, they started to breathe differently. They started questioning the lies they were taught. They started wondering if their own escape was possible. They started realizing they weren't alone. You weren't trying to save anyone. You were just trying not to lose yourself. But somehow, that unintentional act of rebellion became a lighthouse for souls who thought they'd drown forever. Your freedom wasn't just a moment, it became a movement. And the universe is standing there with a grin saying, "See, this is what happens when the chosen one stops apologizing for surviving." The proof that shattered their excuses. They weren't inspired by your perfection. They were inspired by your refusal to keep dying quietly. You didn't give speeches, you didn't preach, you didn't beg anyone to follow your lead. You just walked out of the fire they swore would consume you, and you didn't look back. That alone became the evidence the whole world around you needed. You became the living, breathing contradiction to every lie people told themselves to stay stuck. You were the proof that choosing yourself doesn't make you a villain. It makes you finally, undeniably alive. Imagine this, someone trapped behind glass, watching you break yours with bare hands. That's what people felt when they saw you leave. Your exit was louder than any explanation. Your survival was louder than any apology. And slowly, quietly, people started moving. The friend who spent years shrinking in a relationship that drained their soul finally walked away. The co-worker who was being chewed alive by a boss, confusing loyalty with slavery, finally quit. The family member who was tired of being a punching bag for everyone's unresolved issues finally said, "Not anymore." And here's the wild part. They all said the same sentence, almost word for word. "I watched you do it first. You survived. You made me believe I could too." You became their blueprint without even trying. Your strength cracked their denial. Your courage exposed their fear. Your freedom made their excuses look small. You didn't save them intentionally. You didn't guide them. You didn't stand there with a torch yelling, "Follow me." You just chose yourself. And in doing so, you lit up a path they never knew existed. You weren't trying to save anyone. But somehow, just by surviving out loud, you became the proof they needed to finally save themselves. The hero they never deserved but needed anyway. They said you changed, but really, you stopped dying for people who never planned to live for you. You were never trying to be a hero. That was never your mission. You weren't crafting some rebellion. You weren't strategizing to become anyone's inspiration. You were just trying to breathe without choking on expectations that were never yours to carry. All you wanted was relief, space, air, a life where you weren't sacrificing yourself for people who treated you like a backup battery. But here's the twist. In a world that worships martyrdom, survival looks like a revolution. Imagine this, a battlefield where everyone is taught to fall on the sword to look noble, and then you stand up, drop the sword, and walk out. That's what your escape looked like. Not heroic, not glamorous, just necessary. And that necessity became a declaration of war against everything that tried to shrink you. Choosing yourself in a world that feeds on your sacrifice is the most rebellious act you'll ever commit. You never wanted a movement. You never wanted followers. You never wanted applause. You wanted your peace back. And when you reached for it, when you clawed your way toward it, when you refused to stay where your soul was dying, something massive happened. You won the war. People told you to lose quietly. And while the ones you left behind called you selfish, dramatic, cold, heartless, the ones who were suffering in silence saw something completely different. They didn't see selfishness. They saw possibility. They saw a crack in the cage they thought was permanent. They saw a human who broke the rules and didn't fall apart afterward. And suddenly, they started asking the questions they were too afraid to ask before. Wait, guilt doesn't kill you? Wait, judgment doesn't last forever? Wait, people talk no matter what, so why am I still suffering for them? Wait, choosing myself is actually allowed. You didn't preach any of this. You didn't post motivational quotes. You didn't run around shouting your truth. You just lived it. And your life became the evidence. You proved that guilt is survivable. You proved that judgment is temporary noise. You proved that the world keeps spinning whether they approve or not. You proved that staying small was never noble. It was just tragic. So while the ones who benefited from your pain call it selfish, the ones who finally found their courage because of you call it something else. They call it permission. They call it validation. They call it the wake-up call that cracked open their entire existence. They call it the moment they realized they weren't crazy. They were conditioned. They call it the first time they believed escape was real. You weren't trying to be a hero, but heroes aren't always the ones saving buildings from fire. Sometimes the real hero is the one who finally walks out of the burning house and shows everyone else that the doors were never locked to begin with. The blueprint that broke their control. They wanted you to sink quietly, but you learned how to swim, and suddenly everyone else remembered they have arms too. You didn't set out to become anybody's guide. You weren't trying to lead a movement. You weren't sitting there plotting how to inspire a generation. You were just trying not to lose your mind in a world that kept demanding pieces of you like you were some endless supply. You were drowning, so you swam, burning, so you escaped, trapped, so you crawled toward the crack in the wall and pushed your way through it. No hero agenda, no watch me rise speech. You were trying to stay alive, and that alone flipped the entire atmosphere. But here's the part that hits different. People watched. People who were suffocating in silence. People who were shrinking to keep the peace. People who were carrying generational guilt on their backs like a curse. People who thought they had no right to choose themselves. They saw you break the chain and stand up, and something inside them whispered, if they can do it, maybe I can too. Imagine this, a locked room where everyone assumes the door is sealed. One person tries the handle, it opens. That was you. You touched the handle everyone else was terrified to approach, and it turned. And before you knew it, your survival became a map. Your boundaries became a language. Your escape became the blueprint for anyone too scared to move. You weren't saving them. Your life simply showed the truth they weren't allowed to see. You became living proof that choosing yourself is not betrayal. You became the example of what happens when someone finally stops shrinking. You became the quiet revolution that taught people how to breathe again. And here's the final punch. You weren't trying to save anyone, but by saving yourself, you saved everything. The legend they never saw coming. They tried to bury you, but legends aren't meant to rot. They're meant to rise. Here's the wild thing about all of this. You never set out to become a legend. That was never the mission. You weren't chasing glory, validation, applause, or a spotlight. All you wanted was peace. You were just trying to breathe in a world determined to suffocate you with expectations, guilt, and roles you never agreed to play. But survival has a funny way of turning quiet people into symbols. Not the movie kind, the whispered at midnight kind. The kind people reference when their hands are shaking and they don't know if they can walk away. The kind that lives in the back of someone's mind when they're standing at their own crossroads thinking, if they survived, maybe I can too. Your life became a story, a rumor, a spark, a blueprint, a warning, a permission slip. You turned into the example people use when someone asks, is it really okay to choose yourself? You became the proof when someone whispers, but what will people think? You became the anchor for those drowning in guilt for finally wanting to save themselves. Imagine this, someone standing on the edge of their own breaking point, replaying everything you did, realizing for the first time that escape is real. That's the version of you they whisper about. The version they study, the version they admire, the version they didn't believe could exist. And the reason it hit so hard is because they needed you small. They needed you stuck. They needed you bending, shrinking, apologizing, suffering, so they could feel safe and superior, but you refused their script. You expanded. You evolved. You tore through the box they built around you and didn't apologize for the wreckage. You soared, and they're still on the ground trying to figure out how you slipped through fingers that thought they had you forever. Now look at them, confused, bitter, dissecting your every move, replaying old conversations, trying to spot the moment you became unstoppable. They don't understand how you survived what was supposed to break you. They don't understand how you thrived after what should have erased you. But the answer is brutally simple. You chose you. No magic, no prophecy, no secret code, just a decision that transformed you from a survivor into a legend they'll never forget. The selfishness they fear is just your freedom showing. They don't hate that you chose yourself. They hate that you stopped choosing them. Here's what they'll never wrap their heads around. You don't feel guilty, not even a little. You're not sitting there questioning your decision. You're not losing sleep over people who can't sleep because you're gone. You're not pacing the floor wondering if you should have stayed, apologized, explained, or sacrificed more. That version of you is gone, buried, finished, and you're not resurrecting anything for an audience that ignored you when you were dying in plain sight. Because once you taste freedom, real freedom, the kind that lets you breathe without shrinking, you never go back. Once you feel peace, actual peace, not survival mode calm, you refuse to return to the chaos that almost erased you. Once you experience life without constantly apologizing for existing, every door behind you locks itself. And if that makes you selfish in their story, you'll wear that label like a crown. What they call selfishness is actually self-awareness. What they call abandonment is actually peace. What they call cold is actually calm. What they call heartless is actually healing. You didn't lose empathy. You just stopped pouring it into bottomless pits. You didn't become cruel. You just refused to be convenient. You didn't turn into a monster. You just stopped volunteering as the martyr they depended on. That shift scares them. Of course it does. Your evolution exposed everything they were hiding. Your stability ended their excuses. Your healing ended their hierarchy. Your peace forced them to meet themselves without the distraction of fixing you. And now comes the part that burns them the most. Your presence used to make them feel important. Your struggle made them feel accomplished. Your chaos made them feel stable. Your wounds made them feel whole. They needed you broken because your brokenness made them feel balanced. But when you healed, when you stood up straight, breathed deeper, and remembered your worth, they had to face their own flaws without using you as camouflage. And what they saw in that mirror wasn't pretty, so instead of looking inward, they pointed outward. They slapped the selfish sticker on your forehead and called it truth. But deep down, they know exactly what happened. You didn't betray them. You didn't abandon them. You didn't become cold. You simply became free. The aftershock that still has them shaking. They called you too much because your growth exposed how little they ever intended to grow. You became too much. Different. Unrecognizable. And honestly, they're right. You're not who you used to be. You're who you were always supposed to become before their insecurities tried to shape you into something small enough to control. You stepped out of the version of yourself that kept them comfortable, and suddenly you were labeled the villain. But that's the price of choosing your own narrative over their convenience. That wasn't selfish. That was survival. That was the first honest breath you'd taken in years. Because staying would have erased you, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, quietly, slowly. You would have dissolved into their expectations, disappeared under their guilt trips, faded into their needs until you became nothing but a placeholder wearing a smile. You would have been a ghost in your own life. So you chose life over loyalty. You chose peace over performance. You chose yourself. And that one decision created an aftershock you'll never fully witness. Somewhere right now, someone is whispering, if they can walk away, maybe I can too. Someone is setting a boundary because you taught them it won't kill them. Someone is choosing themselves because you showed guilt is survivable. Someone is saying no because you said no and the sky didn't collapse. Someone is packing their bags because you proved escape is real. You weren't trying to save anyone, but your survival saved futures you'll never meet. You saved yourself from becoming a warning story. You saved others from staying in prisons they thought were permanent. You saved the timeline from a version of you that would have died slowly while smiling politely. And now, here you stand, at this moment of clarity, probably wondering, so, what now? Now, nothing changes. You don't go back. You don't apologize. You don't dim yourself so fragile egos can sleep better. The storm is behind you. The silence belongs to you. And for the first time in your entire life, you're finally unafraid of your own freedom. So no, sliding straight out of that final truth. There's only one thing left to say. You didn't just walk out of the fire. You rewrote the fate that was supposed to swallow you, that ending they planned for you. You shattered it. And now you move forward without flinching, without shrinking, without ever handing your freedom back. If this hit you where it needed to, chosen one, strengthen the mission. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop the number 77 in the comments, and share this with someone who needs their awakening. Let the ripple continue. You earned this chapter.